Hello and welcome to Starbound's second channel. My name is Gabriel the Bibi Capaldi and I'll be your narrator today. But before we get into today's story, please do check down below that you are subscribed to the channel. It's 100% free and helps us pop up on your feed a bit more often. As Assistant Professor and Dr. Kaya Viridian walked in class, she overheard one of the students talking about the subject of her lecture. They sweat, they burp, they fart. What the hell is wrong with human biology? The comment hung in the air like a floating bubble of gossip, but Kaya merely pursed her lips and continued her slow stride across the threshold. Her silver eyelashes caught the white classroom light as she blinked, casting momentary shadows across her emerald cheeks. The deep green tones of her skin, the particular shade that had earned her species their name, seemed almost to glow under the classroom's simple illumination. She tucked a strand of metallic silver hair behind one of her short, pointed ears, a habitual gesture that betrayed a hint of nervousness despite her confident demeanor. Kaya wore her usual teaching attire, human-made jeans and a comfortable top made by her own species. Her posture was impeccable, spine straight as a ruler, chin held high enough to convey authority, but not so high as to suggest arrogance. The golden rings adorning each of her slender fingers clinked softly against the table she carried, the only sound accompanying her footsteps across the polished floor. Her eyes surveyed the classroom with clinical detachment, though those who knew her well might detect the subtle spark of enthusiasm she always felt at the beginning of a new term. The classroom was a mixed species class, the first of its kind in Nova Terra. There were only 3 species in these classes for now, and most of them were from Kaya's own species, Arcradians. Short, pointy ears, green skin, humanoid appearance, silver hair, and even silver eyebrows and eyelashes. The walls were lined with projection screens, ensuring that every student could see demonstrations from any angle. The chairs were designed with adjustable settings to accommodate the different physiological needs of each species, a detail that had been Kaya's suggestion during the planning phase. Large windows allowed natural light to filter through, though there wasn't much to see at night. The air was kept at a precise temperature and humidity level that represented a compromise between the preferences of all 3 attending species. She ignored the whispering students, their comments fading into background noise as she approached the front of the classroom. The teaching podium awaited her, its sleek design a personal preference. She placed her tablet on the surface, watching as it synced automatically with the classroom's systems. A soft glow emanated from the connection point, confirming successful integration. With a few practiced gestures, she activated the wall projection, her presentation file materializing in crisp clarity. The title slide read, "Introduction to Human Physiology, Understanding Our Galactic Neighbors," in elegant script against a backdrop of Earth's continents. Kaya took a moment to observe her students, all adults, thankfully, as she preferred teaching mature students since there wouldn't be parents involved. It wasn't that she disliked children, she simply had little patience for the chaos that inevitably ensued when too many young ones occupied the same space. Her eyes scanned the room methodically, taking mental attendance. She counted 6 Hessarians, seated primarily toward the left side of the classroom. Their elven-like features were unmistakable, almond-shaped eyes of vibrant green that seemed almost luminescent against their pale ivory skin. Both males and females wore their characteristic long hair, which ranged from platinum to deep auburn, intricately braided or adorned with delicate metallic ornaments that jingled softly when they moved. Not a trace of facial hair among them, something she had only recently realized was a rare trait not shared by both humans and her own species. The Hessarians' ears, longer and more tapered than her own, moved occasionally as they whispered among themselves, their natural grace evident even in such small movements. On the right side sat 3 Lodarians, avian creatures whose plumage displayed an extensive variation across individuals, even more varied than the array of colors she would find in humans. One male had feathers in shades of midnight blue that transitioned to turquoise at the head. Another displayed a magnificent crown of crimson plumes that he preened with obvious pride. The sole female Lodarian possessed feathers of such a delicate lavender hue that they appeared almost translucent when she shifted position. Their beaked faces were expressive in their own way, though it had taken Kaya some time to learn how to read their emotions. Their taloned hands held styluses specifically designed for their grip, poised above personal tablets as they waited for class to begin. The rest of the students were Arcadians like herself, their green skin varying from pale jade to the deep emerald of Kaya's own complexion. Silver hair gleamed under the lights, some cropped short, others elaborately styled in the latest fashion from their homeworld. Familiar eyes regarded her with varying degrees of interest and skepticism. One male in particular, the one who had made the comment about human biology, sat with his arms crossed defensively, his pale green complexion somehow managing to look both bored and confrontational at once. Kaya cleared her throat. "May I have your attention, please?" The effect was immediate. Every student straightened in their seat, conversations dying mid-sentence. This, she thought with a flicker of satisfaction, was why teaching adults was infinitely preferable. They understood the value of what she offered, the importance of respectful attention. No need for multiple requests or disciplinary measures, just students eager to learn, or at least professional enough to pretend. "Thank you," she said, her voice carrying clearly to every corner of the room. "Welcome to Advanced Human Physiology 301. I am Assistant Professor Dr. Kaya Viridian, and I will be guiding you through what I consider one of the most fascinating subjects in xenobiology." She moved around the podium, preferring to stand directly before her students rather than behind a barrier. "Some of you may already know my background, but for those who don't, I was the first non-human student accepted into Nova Terra's prestigious medical program 3 years ago." A small smile played at the corner of her lips. "In fact, many of you might be aware that my success case was one of the primary reasons this class exists today." Several students nodded in recognition, and she noticed a few Hessarians exchange impressed glances. "I'm not telling you this to boast," she continued, "but simply because I stand before you as living proof that a non-human can become not just competent, but genuinely proficient in understanding human physiology and the biological processes that govern their bodies." Her gaze shifted deliberately to the Arcadian male who had made the earlier comment. "This includes the processes of sweating, burping, and flatulence, or as I believe I overheard someone phrase it, farting, that some of you may find peculiar." The Arcadian male suddenly found himself the focal point of the entire class, every head turning to look at him. His green skin visibly paled, taking on an almost sickly lime hue. He shifted uncomfortably in his seat, the material of his clothing rustling loudly in the silence. He began, his voice cracking slightly before he cleared his throat and tried again. "I mean no disrespect, Professor, but it's still true what I said about humans. Their biological functions are unusual by galactic standards." "Indeed they are," Kaya agreed, nodding thoughtfully. "And you're absolutely right to note these differences. In fact, understanding these unusual aspects of human physiology is crucial to comprehending how they've adapted to survive across the galaxy." The tension in the Arcadian's shoulders visibly relaxed, and a ripple of interest moved through the classroom. "To truly grasp why humans developed these features that many species find difficult to understand," Kaya continued, advancing her presentation to reveal a representation of Earth floating in the center of the room, "we must first discuss their home planet." The image changed slowly, highlighting various geographical features: vast oceans, towering mountain ranges, sprawling forests, and arid deserts. "Earth is a planet of extremes by galactic standards. The environmental pressures there forced humans to develop remarkable skills. She zoomed the image in to display a detailed cross-section of the human digestive system, its complexity rendered in vibrant colors. Let's start with the digestive system, which explains the phenomena of burping and flatulence. Earth's incredible biodiversity meant humans evolved the ability to eat almost anything. She emphasized the last two words, letting them hang in the air for effect. And when I say anything, I mean anything. It is extraordinarily difficult to food poison a human. They are the only known sentient species that doesn't need to analyze food from other planets before consuming it. Their default biological response is typically to digest it successfully, regardless of its origin or composition. Several students looked skeptical, while others appeared deeply impressed. One Lodarian scribbled notes frantically, his blue feathers quivering with excitement. The key to this remarkable digestive flexibility, Kaya continued, highlighting specific areas of the projection, lies in the symbiotic relationship humans have developed with bacteria. Their digestive tract houses trillions of microorganisms that assist in breaking down an astonishing variety of compounds. This microbial community is so diverse and adaptable that it can evolve to process new foods within weeks. She gestured to the lower portions of the intestinal tract. The production of gas, resulting in what we call flatulence, and the occasional need to expel air through the esophagus, or burping, are simply collateral effects of this amazing food consumption machine. They are, in essence, the price humans pay for their extraordinary digestive power. One of the avian students raised a taloned hand. His plumage was a striking pattern of copper and gold, catching the light as he moved. Yes, Kaya nodded in his direction. Soha, isn't it? Yes, Professor, the Lodarian confirmed, his voice melodious with the characteristic harmonic undertones of his species. What about sweating? That's perhaps the most peculiar trait to me. The idea of constantly leaking moisture seems wasteful and, frankly, quite strange. An excellent question, Kaya replied, genuinely pleased with the intelligent inquiry. She changed the image projected, dismissing the digestive system and replacing it with a detailed image of human skin, magnified to show the intricate network of sweat glands beneath the surface. Sweating is actually one of the defining features of human physiology, she began, her voice taking on the more passionate tone that always emerged when discussing a subject she found particularly fascinating. It evolved as a cooling mechanism, but its elegance is truly remarkable when you consider the evolutionary context. The image shifted to show early humans running across a savanna, pursuing prey under a blazing sun. Earth's early humans developed a hunting strategy known as persistence hunting. Rather than relying on superior speed or strength, they would pursue prey to the point of exhaustion. She highlighted the sweating process on the projected humans. Most Earth mammals cool themselves by panting, rapid breathing that releases heat but severely limits oxygen intake during exertion. Humans, however, evolved to shed heat through their skin via sweating, allowing them to maintain thermal equilibrium while continuing to breathe normally during extended periods of exertion. Kaya manipulated the controls to show a comparison between human thermoregulation and that of other species. This adaptation gave them great endurance. They could literally run prey to death under the hot sun, as their quarry would eventually collapse from heat exhaustion, while the humans could continue indefinitely, cooled by their efficient sweating system. The students watched, many with recently discovered appreciation as the simulation played out. Modern humans, of course, rarely need this ability for hunting, she continued, shifting the display to show contemporary human attire. They've developed sophisticated fabrics that wick moisture away from the skin, allowing for comfort despite this evolutionary adaptation. They've also created chemicals called deodorants and antiperspirants that control both the amount of sweat produced and the bacterial growth that can cause odor. She paused, adjusting another setting on the display. Speaking of odor, the pleasant scent that many associate with humans is partially due to these applied fragrances. However, she added with more personal than scientific experience, how one perceives human smell is largely dependent on the olfactory sensibilities of their species. What might be pleasant to one could be neutral or even mildly offensive to another. An Arcadian student, not the one who had spoken earlier, raised his hand. He had unusually dark green skin and wore his silver hair pulled back in a tight knot at the nape of his neck. "Professor Viridian," he began, a hint of mischief in his voice, "you seem very knowledgeable about such specific details of how humans smell. Is that something they teach in advanced medical courses?" Kaya felt a momentary panic fluttering in her chest, but her face remained impassive, not betraying a hint of the alarm his question triggered. The specific knowledge of human sense was something she had indeed acquired at home, in moments of intimacy rather than academic study. The memory of Peter's skin against hers, the particular blend of pheromones and synthetic fragrance that was uniquely his, flashed unbidden through her mind. "That's an astute observation, Lahir," she replied smoothly, recognizing the student from her class roster. "We don't cover olfactory specifics in such detail in standard curricula. Much of what I've shared comes from supplementary research and, of course, professional interaction with human colleagues." She spread her hands in a gesture that encompassed the entire classroom. "As you progress in your studies, you'll find that your most valuable education often occurs outside formal settings. You'll learn a great deal about the human students you encounter and the humans you interact with beyond campus grounds. I encourage you all to approach such interactions with curiosity, while maintaining appropriate professional boundaries, of course." The qualification seemed to satisfy Lahir, who nodded and sat back, though the slight quirk of his lips suggested he wasn't entirely convinced by her explanation. Kaya moved swiftly to the next slide, eager to redirect the conversation. Just when she thought the most challenging part of the lesson was behind her, a female Hessarian raised her hand. She had striking features even by Hessarian standards, hair so pale it was almost white, braided elaborately with silver threads that matched her reflective clothing. "Yes," Kaya acknowledged, hoping for a straightforward academic question.
"Professor,"
the Hessarian began, her voice hesitant,
"how exactly can humans look at other species as mating material?"
The classroom fell suddenly silent, every student staring at the Hessarian with wide eyes. Several Arcadians exchanged shocked glances, while one of the Lodarians made a sound suspiciously like suppressed laughter. The Hessarian's pale skin flushed with a pink tinge, but she pressed on.
"I mean, when I ventured into Nova Terra's nightlife district last weekend, I'm quite certain several human males and at least 2 human females approached me with that sort of intention."
She twisted her fingers together nervously.
"I'm simply trying to understand this from a biological perspective."
Kaya suppressed a sigh. Every term, without fail, the conversation inevitably turned in this direction. She had learned it was better to address it directly, rather than allow speculation and misinformation to flourish. Without a hint of embarrassment, she changed the slide presentation. 2 images appeared on the projection, simplified diagrams of male and female human bodies, annotated with biological markers relevant to attraction and reproduction. "Thank you for your question, Ms.
"Hissa,"
the Hessarian replied. "Hissa," Kaya repeated with a nod. "Your question actually touches on one of the most interesting aspects of human psychology and biology." She gestured toward the diagrams.
Humans are a species that comes in a remarkable variety of shapes, forms, skin tones, and eye color. This phenotypic diversity is unusual in galactic terms. She adjusted the display to show a montage of human faces and bodies, highlighting the extensive variation within their single species. The few scientists who have conducted serious studies on interspecies attraction suspects that this variation in appearance among humanity is the primary reason they are capable of being physically attracted to virtually any bipedal species in the galaxy. Several students shifted uncomfortably in their seats, but Kaya noted in satisfaction that every one of them was paying rapt attention. Equally significant is their pronounced pack bonding ability, she continued, displaying neural scans of the human brain with the relevant areas highlighted. Humans form attachments easily and intensely, a trait that developed as a survival mechanism on Earth. This psychological characteristic ensures that other species can very likely also develop attraction, physical, romantic, or occasionally even attachments that might be considered unhealthy by either species' standards toward humans. She changed the display again, this time showing respectful images of various interspecies couples. Such relationships are quite common on Earth and in major human colonies. Even here on Nova Terra, despite our relatively small population, there are several examples of these. She paused, selecting her words carefully. Displays of interspecies affection. Hissa looked increasingly disturbed as Kaya spoke.
I'm certain that no one here is engaging in such behavior,
she declared, looking around at her fellow students for confirmation. When no one immediately responded, her voice rose slightly.
No one is doing that, right? Right?
The silence stretched uncomfortably as students avoided meeting her gaze or each other's. Even the typically vocal Arcadian who had commented on human bodily functions kept his eyes fixed firmly on his desk.
I can't believe it,
Hissa said, her voice a blend of shock and disgust.
You people are sick.
There wasn't a single voice agreeing with her this time, not even a murmur of support. The silence in the classroom was thick enough to cut with a surgical laser. Kaya stepped forward, her professional demeanor firmly in place. Hissa, she said calmly but firmly, let me be clear about two things. First, no one will force you into any situation or relationship you're uncomfortable with. If that was your concern, please be assured that Nova Terra has strict regulations about consent that apply across all species. She let that point sink in before continuing. Second, if you have moral objections to the personal choices others make in their private lives, perhaps this isn't the appropriate class for you. Xenobiology and xenomedicine require an open mind and a non-judgmental approach to biological and cultural differences. Kaya deliberately didn't elaborate further. She owed the students no explanation about her personal life, about what or who awaited her at home. Her relationship with Peter was her own business, not a topic for classroom discussion. Hissa appeared taken aback by Kaya's response, her delicate features registering surprise and then something like chastened recognition. After a moment, she nodded once and settled back into her seat, eyes downcast, fingers nervously adjusting her silver-threaded braids. The awkward silence persisted until Sohar, the Lodarian who had asked about sweating, cleared his throat, a sound that in his species resembled wind chimes in a gentle breeze.
If it helps,
he offered, turning slightly toward Hissa.
My species is physiologically incompatible with humans in the manner you are referring to. Our reproductive biology is entirely different.
His copper and gold plumage ruffled slightly, in what Kaya recognized as a gesture of gentle humor.
So you can be certain that at least some interspecies relationships remain purely platonic. In fact, humans are more likely to treat us like pets than potential mates, if that makes you feel any better.
A ripple of relieved laughter spread through the classroom, breaking the tension. Even Hiss's lips curved in a reluctant smile. Sensing an opportunity to move away from the awkward topic, Kaya introduced a subject that wasn't strictly part of the curriculum, but would serve as an effective distraction. Soha raises an interesting point about human behavior that many of you may encounter, she said, bringing up a new slide showing humans interacting with various species, particularly those with fur or feathers. Humans have a marked tendency to treat species with fluffy fur or feathers less seriously than those without those features. She clicked through several images showing humans petting or cuddling with alien species that resembled Earth animals. They often ask for permission to touch or pet such individuals. This behavior can seem condescending or infantilizing to many species, and there are ongoing educational efforts to discourage humans from this practice. Kaya shrugged slightly, a rare informal gesture. However, it's rather like fighting against a powerful current. This tendency is deeply ingrained in human psychology, possibly related to their long history of domesticating animals on Earth. The situation is further complicated by the fact that some individuals from furry or feathered species actually enjoy the attention and physical contact. This revelation prompted several glances toward the Lodarians, whose feathered heads tilted at various angles in what might have been embarrassment or acknowledgement. A male Arcadian, sitting near the back, raised his hand. "Professor, I thought this was a human biology class, not a behavioral psychology seminar." "You're absolutely right," Kaya acknowledged with a gracious nod. "Thank you for bringing us back on track." She changed the projection to a detailed image of the human muscular system, the intricate layers of fibers displayed in various colors to indicate different muscle groups. Let's shift our focus to another fascinating aspect of human physiology, their musculoskeletal system. As the image slowly rotated, highlighting different muscle groups in sequence, Kaya continued. Humans possess one of the densest and most resilient bodies of all known sentient species, perhaps because of their evolutionary past as persistence hunters. They demonstrate great endurance and strength compared to most other species. She highlighted the cardiac muscles in particular. Their cardiovascular system, especially, seems designed for extended exertion. A healthy human can maintain moderate physical activity for hours with appropriate hydration, a capability that astounded early xenobiologists. A male student of her own species, one whose name she didn't recall, raised his hand with an eager expression. "Professor, I heard that humans can survive up to 15 Gs of force on their body. Is that true?" The question caught Kaya off guard. She couldn't suppress the soft chuckle that escaped her lips, unbidden memories of Peter flooding her mind. His boastful claims during their third date about his training, the playful argument that followed, and the experimental verification of human resilience later that night. The classroom seemed suddenly too warm as she surveyed the variety of reactions to her unexpected laughter. Curiosity from most of the class, confusion from a few, and knowing smirks from at least 2 Arcadians, who clearly suspected there was more to her response than professional amusement. 15 Gs seems a bit excessive for long-term exposure, based on current medical literature, Kaya replied, regaining her composure. Humans can certainly survive short exposures to approximately 12 Gs, and many can remain conscious during maneuvers up to 9 Gs. She paused, a small, private smile playing at the corner of her lips. Though a certain pilot I know claims he can remain conscious at 11 Gs, but I don't entirely trust his account. he had something of a habit of exaggerating size numbers. Her unconscious attempt at subtle humour was met with blank stares. Most of the class had clearly missed the implication, their cultural reference points too different to catch the innuendo. Only one Arcadian female covered her mouth to hide a smile, clearly more familiar with human expressions than her classmates. Kaya cleared her throat and continued in a more purely scientific vein. Human endurance is quite remarkable by galactic standards. Their cardiovascular system can be trained to perform at levels that would be dangerous for many other species. She switched to a series of comparative diagrams showing oxygen utilization across different species. The display showed human lung capacity alongside that of 3 species present in the classroom. The differences were obvious. Human lungs appeared deceptively simple compared to the elaborate respiratory structures of the Lodarians, yet their efficiency at oxygen exchange under stress was nearly double. Through dedicated physical conditioning, humans can dramatically improve their baseline capabilities, she continued, bringing up new data points that tracked performance metrics before and after training regimens. Elite human athletes can perform feats that would seem almost impossible based on the average metrics of their species. The display showed a montage of human athletic performances, runners, swimmers, weightlifters, each pushing the boundaries of physical capability. Several students leaned forward, clearly impressed by the feats of strength and endurance. The combination of their unique respiratory efficiency, dense musculature, and highly adaptive cardiovascular systems means that a well-trained human in peak physical condition can endure stresses that would incapacitate many other species. The Hissarian student, not Hissa, but a male with copper-tinged hair arranged in an elaborate series of braids, raised his hand.
Professor, what about their skeletal structure? How do their bones not break under such pressure?
Another good question, Kaya replied, genuinely pleased with the class's engagement. She projected a model of the human skeletal system, highlighting the internal structure of the bones. Human bones are resilient. They're composed primarily of collagen, which provides flexibility, and hydroxyapatite, which provides hardness and compression strength. She zoomed in on a cross-section of a femur. Unlike the more rigid and brittle skeletal structures of some species, human bones have a slight degree of flex. More importantly, they're constantly remodeling themselves in response to stress, becoming stronger in precisely the areas that experience the most pressure. The bone image rotated slowly, layers peeling away to reveal the intricate honeycomb structure within. This internal architecture, similar to the support structures in their ancient buildings, provides maximum strength with minimum weight. It's an elegant solution that evolution found. Without thinking, she added, I accidentally hit a human with a piece of furniture I was trying to fix once, and not even his nose broke despite it basically flattening him against the ground. The moment the words left her mouth, Kaya realized she'd shared far more than she intended. The classroom went utterly silent, every student staring at her with expressions ranging from shock to morbid fascination.
You hit a human with furniture?
Soha asked, his golden plumage standing on end. It was an accident, Kaya clarified quickly, her professional veneer momentarily cracking. A shelving unit. I was attempting to assemble it, became frustrated with the confusing instructions, and when I lifted it to examine the base, I turned too quickly and... She made a vague gesture with her hands that somehow conveyed both impact and apology. And the human survived? Asked one of the Arcrarians, clearly impressed rather than horrified. Of course, Kaya said, relieved that the class seemed more interested in the biological implications than the personal revelation. I simply stretched him back into shape, and we didn't even go to the hospital, she demonstrated with her hands, making a motion as though carefully reshaping something delicate.
Human cartilage and soft tissue are elastic. They can absorb impact and return to their original form, especially with appropriate medical assistance.
Was this a friend of yours? Lahir asked, the same Arcadian who had questioned her about human sense. There was a knowing lilt to his voice that made Kaya's skin warm slightly.
Of course it was a friend, she replied quickly. Why would I be fixing his furniture if he wasn't a friend?
Her response seemed to satisfy the class on the surface, though she noted several exchanged glances that suggested they weren't entirely convinced by her explanation. The Lodarians, in particular, seemed to communicate something among themselves through subtle movements of their feathered crests that Kaya couldn't quite interpret. She quickly glanced at the time display and seized the opportunity to redirect.
We're nearly at the end of our allocated time. One final question before you go.
A female Lodarian with pristine white feathers edged with gold raised a delicate taloned hand.
Professor, this is somewhat tangential, but could you recommend resources for further independent study?
Kaya smiled, grateful for the shift to safer territory. I'll send you all a file off the record, a guide to accessing and navigating the human internet for academic research. She tapped a few commands on her tablet, and each student received a notification that a document had been shared to their personal academic profiles.
Their information networks are organized differently than ours, but once you understand the structure, you'll find they have astonishingly comprehensive data on practically every subject, including their own biology.
She scrolled briefly through the document she'd shared, highlighting key sections. Her expression turned slightly mischievous.
It will make your academic lives much easier, though I must insist that if any of you are questioned about where you obtained this information, you didn't get it from me. The official channels can be somewhat bureaucratic about cross-species information sharing.
This earned her a round of appreciative smiles and nods. She closed her presentation with a few quick gestures.
That concludes our introduction to human physiology. Next session, we'll delve deeper into their neurological structure, which presents its own peculiarities.
The students began gathering their materials, the classroom filling with the soft sounds of tablets being deactivated and chairs adjusting as students stood. There was a buzz of animated conversations, a promising sign that the material had sparked genuine interest.
Thank you, Professor Veridian,
Sohar said as he passed her desk, his copper and gold plumage catching the light.
Your perspectives on human biology are very detailed.
Several other students echoed similar sentiments as they filed out. Even Hissa, who had been so uncomfortable with the topic of interspecies relationships, offered a small nod of acknowledgement before departing, though her expression remained guarded. As the last student left, Kaya allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. She began organizing her own materials, reflecting on the session. Despite the occasional personal slip, the class had gone well overall. The students seemed genuinely engaged, asking thoughtful questions beyond the basic curriculum. This would be one of her final classes as an assistant professor. Her brief academic career had always been intended as a transitional phase, a way to share her unique knowledge before returning to clinical practice where she truly belonged. Soon she would be back in the hospital setting, only this time treating humans rather than exclusively her own species. The difference now was that she had learned how to balance work and personal life, not letting her career consume her as it once had. Peter had taught her that, not directly, but through his persistent, gentle presence in her life. Through his ridiculous jokes and stubborn insistence that they make time for each other despite their demanding schedules, Kaya closed her tablet with a soft click and gathered her personal items. As she walked out of the classroom, her thoughts were already shifting from Assistant Professor Veridian to Dr. Veridian, from theoretical discussions of human physiology to practical applications of that knowledge. And maybe, she admitted to herself with a small smile, to personal applications as well. After all, understanding the incredible resilience of human biology had proved useful far beyond her personal life.